record this session. There we go. And of course, as you know, we're going to share the recordings as well as the slides on the OCMA website, probably early next week, just to give it a chance to get updated. Please, if you are not speaking, you can have your camera and your mic muted. And of course, we will have opportunity for discussion at the end. Paul welcomes anyone that has questions throughout the presentation. Please go ahead and post them at your convenience. I will be monitoring the chat and I will interrupt and share your question. Again, if there's anyone joining, I'm just taking a quick peek. I don't think we have anyone joining that I don't know who you are. Just to try to make sure that your name is clear so that we can send those of you that are doing 5 or more sessions, we can send you your badges. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Paul, our presenter for today. Paul, if you can introduce yourself, let your OCMA colleagues, Ontario College Math Association colleagues know that Paul is coming to us from Alberta, and he will share with you a little bit about himself before he gets started. Paul, thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you for having me, everyone. Hi, my name is Paul Obour. So I'm a math teacher here, an instructor at Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, SAIT. So I'm glad to be part of the OCMA for this year. I teach math to School of Business. I teach math to ICT, and I also teach math to School of Engineering. So I teach across 3 schools here at SAIT. So this afternoon, I'm going to be talking about, the impact of COVID-19 and how we switch our calculus to online as everyone did. So what has been the benefits and why I took on this project, and I also want to share some of the positives and the challenges to the team. Please feel free to ask any questions as the presentation keeps moving. So first of all, when COVID hit, least did we know that we're going to be teaching maths remotely. So first of all, I had the opportunity to work with Vera on something that personally I decided to, that is to create kind of problems for my students for them to be able to do online. That was even pre-COVID. It was all before COVID happened. I did a small presentation to my associate dean at the time, and he was really thrilled. He decided to have a team of support around me so that we build most of our courses to have kind of like an open repository of resources. So again, we saw that some of the students had some challenges in meeting some of the cost in education. Probably higher education cost keeps moving at a rate higher than the inflation rate in Canada. So when we did this or took on this project, we found out that the cost actually was almost nothing. What we tell students, this is less than like a day or 2 days of, or probably less than a week of lunch that you might spend. And they were really happy that it was very, very cost effective. And another thing that we also found that was kind of like how we can implement our course materials. As a team for this program, we're looking at the augmentation part of it. So I took my own notes, built my own questions, and then probably look at the resources that are available to us from Vera through OpenStax. We'll talk more about that later. So then again, I also find out that there will be more relevant and engaging materials to students instead of some areas whereby we have access to all these materials, but then it does not actually cut the outlines in our courses. Now, since we own, or for instance, say it here, we co-own the resource, we have also the benefit to improve it at any time. It's going to be quicker. As we go through the resources in terms of assessments and notes, and know that if there are any changes, any additions, we can just do them on the go with the help of having to work with Vera. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is, how these courses here at SAIT, because I teach into ICT and then into School of Engineering, the electronics engineering program actually sits with the information technology and then the electrical engineering. sits with the School of Energy. Those are the two key programs that take the huge calculus course here at SAIT. All other engineering technology programs have their calculus broken into two. We have what we call it's called Math 1, like Calculus 1 and Calculus 2. The first one is mainly calculus for algebraic functions, and then the second is calculus for transcendental functions. There is also in future for us to also look at the calculus for our degree program. We have one degree program in the School of Construction. It's called Bachelor's in Construction Project Management. We also teach calculus into that program. So in future, we are also looking at adding into it. Now, since I've been working with James for a while on this particular project. So James, would you like to chip in anything with the courses, especially with the 238 and 288, 280?
Sure. So the whole idea here was to create flexible, engaging, and cost-effective resources. So when Paul contacted us, he didn't have a clear idea of what to take and what could be done from the OpenStax content out there and how to make it pragmatic and fit for his program needs. He worked with our editorial team to customize and publish these 3 e-textbooks. And they're actually available to everyone under the Creative Commons license for non-commercial use and distribution. I should actually go grab the links and put them here as well to cover these courses. So we took the American OpenStax content and we Canadianized it and worked with Paul to have exactly what he needed for each and every course. So the students weren't going around looking to 5 or 6 different links for one course. We consolidated it into one nice package. It was actually a really cool and neat project, and working with Paul is always a pleasure, as well as SAIT. I think the administration was actually very open and willing to do this as well. It was a really, really great opportunity. Paul, was there anything more specific you wanted me to say at this point? Or?
Well, thank you very much. I think we are okay now. So later I'll ask him.
Paul and James, sorry, my apologies. There is a question, and I don't know which one of you want to address it. Norm just quickly asked a comment from before. He says, you mentioned cost of education rising faster than inflation rates. Do you have a breakdown of where those cost increases are originating from? Or maybe not even a breakdown, but maybe you can indicate some indicators that you might know about.
Well, I think one thing that I know is because having the chance to deal with a lot of students, most of these students, they tend to purchase their textbooks when their financial aid is available. So to reduce the stress of, it's not just only with textbook, even the cost of living on campus, especially for those that are coming from, out of town. So everything seems to be rising. And having a way to help students to, minimize their cost of education on campus is something that the institution is, likes to do. And usually we say student first. So in terms of completion rate, when we introduce these ones to, probably I don't have the exact numbers, but there are times that some students will probably drop out due to several financial challenges. Could be with their school fees as well. But these are the minor ones that we can mitigate. We try as much as we can to chip in. And it is a project that I personally took it on, and now I have a huge backing from my colleagues.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head there, Paul. Inflation in general is up. And I don't have a specific breakdown for this, but just think of gas or just anything. Everything is increasing in price faster than everything else. So, yeah.
Does that answer your question, Norm? Or do you have any other thing that you want to share with us?
Oh, go ahead, Norm.
Well, just saying, we've been limited to 1% increases and everything, and that's fine. That's a good idea. And I just wonder where the gasoline thing, like I got to say, COVID really helped me and my family. We're all working from home and saving hundreds of dollars a month on fuel. So I'm just wondering, to say everything's going up, well, not everything's going up. Some things are and some things aren't. And I think it's important to identify what is and what isn't if it's not positively affecting education.
Yeah. All right. So I believe when we were doing, say it now, we are back to fully in-person school. I come to school four times a week. So it's only today I've been here, like I'm already done my second class. So this is kind of my third presentation. So we come in, it's like James mentioned, gas prices are quite high. If you need to commute, well, that is also good to take the train and the bus. But in terms of education, we can all agree that tuition fees and other fees keep rising. And these students tend to find it quite difficult to make ends meet, especially those that do not have the backing of their family. And this is why probably part of the reasons, if we can help them bring the cost of the education down by providing the quality resource that we can, we go ahead and do so.
Oh, when did just for everyone else's information here, when did Southern Alberta Institute of Technology resume in-person classes? Was it just this fall, or did they bring everyone back earlier than that?
No, just this fall. Just this fall. Yeah, so here there is a vaccine mandate. So, usually in the mornings it's so busy. There are long queues for us to access the buildings. We have to, the institution have their own app that we have to upload our vaccine status. And, there's a whole lot of things going on, but we are here. We are here. Okay, so next I want to continue on to, part of also the what is happening now as we keep speaking about classrooms or no classroom, we still have to keep teaching. Now, I never thought I would have to teach calculus online, and when we switched March of 2019, we actually didn't know what we were going to be doing. It was like we were venturing into unknown territories. But now, almost like 2 years into it, we've come out with so many forms and so many ways of having to deal with teaching online. Even though we are back on campus, some of us still prefer to even use the online tool to teach in class, and which I find to be very useful because we keep teaching, and then we also have the ability to record the lessons for students, to have access to all those materials at home. Now with OERs, I think they seem to be the new trend now. One usefulness is reducing the cost of printing. So all this printing that I remember when we were fully on campus, there is one issue that we had in our department. Either one printer is not working, the other is working. So now we don't have that challenge because we tend to use a lot of online resources. Now, OpenStax, I never heard about that until I contacted Vera about having to build my own resources for my calculus classes, and then to extend it to the other courses that we teach here at SAIT. And with not just with the resources for students as notes, but the assessments as well. Because with online education, especially doing math online, if you tend to leave everything to multiple choice or to leave everything to just to entering the answers, some people could even write the exam for others. So one thing that I tell my students now, grades will not be the big thing in COVID era. It is you being able to actually perform and do what you are really tasked to do, let's say on the job. So having a very robust online system like using the Intromat system, has been very, very helpful. I create the questions myself, so I know, and it's all based on what we teach. Nothing outside, is all stuff that we teach to make sure that the students have an actual idea of whatever they are being tested on. So this is, part of the reasons, and this COVID is going on, even though now we seem to have everyone being on campus, we still cannot forgo online assessment or online way of doing things. So with the custom OER, so now the challenge, not only probably to me in teaching calculus and other math classes, here in Alberta, some students take calculus in high school, others don't. They come into my class with no knowledge in calculus. You write a limit sign and they're like, what is going on here? And then some others, I mean, there are other students who also have strong background to their own level of calculus before coming to college. Now, one usefulness of the OpenStax resource that we used, it has an algebra part. So when we selected the content for the calculus, we actually also included the algebraic part, which includes all these algebra review questions, a bit of functions. And so we spent the first week to kind of touch base with the concept of algebra, because for us to do very well in calculus, we should have a strong back in algebra. So the courses or the resources that we put together actually match the outlines or the content of our calculus courses. And then we also have the added benefit of having to draw the algebraic part of it. Now, the questions that we put together for the assessment are actually questions that are from the OpenStax, in addition to the stuff that we have from our own notes, to make sure that for each question, and they are going to be randomly or algorithmically generated by using the Vera resource. And that student found to be very helpful because they'll be working on the same problem but with different numbers. So it helps to prevent the level of cheating and to make sure that everybody does their own work. So the e-test or the textbook that you see on the screen, these are not actual physical copies. These are e-tests. So they were created for us for all the courses that we have here. They kind of give us a very good theme. Students have access to these e-tests in nice PDF forms, and these are all available on the Intromat platform. And when we come to class, sometimes it will amaze you that even in this era, students are so good in surfing the web, but they find it quite challenging to do some online stuff. So we spend time to orientate all these students with access to Intromat and how to navigate with Intromat with all the resources that are available. Now, how about the assessment criteria? So one thing that I had always wanted is to have a robust form of assessing students. When COVID hit, people, that were not even A students were getting A's in other courses. How do we try and solve this? My averages actually did not change that much, because one thing that I found to be, very practical is have students submit the actual work to me. So they will complete the assessment, for instance, the test and the final exams. The security feature that I found very useful. So for every question that they are answering, they will have to enter their final answer and then submit their work. So when I'm grading, I'm looking at their work, how they went through it, and then look at the final answer to allot the full marks. Now, Vera actually has a tool that enables students to do this. So they can actually take a photo of their work and upload their solution to to each particular work or question that they are doing. And these students find to be very good, because at the end of the day, the instructor has the option to release the full solution to the students. And that is when everything is done. And they appreciate it. Now, it saves us time to go back and review everything. So, after we are done grading, we have to go back and review all the questions. But since these are randomly generated and algorithmically generated, the full solutions are made available to students. And then here I've shown some example of how this is done. And this is actually from, I think, Mat 238 or probably from Mat 280. So the students will put in their work. It shows the solution. And this is after they have completed all 3 attempts. On the test or final exam, they only have 1 attempt. And so once everything is done, we get to receive their solutions and then go through it to allot partial marks where it deems fit. James, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, this was actually from the Math 280. You were right.
This is from 280, okay.
Yeah, so what Paul's talking about here is the ability not only for students to simply upload their rough work and their handwritten writing within our own system or to a Dropbox or anything like that, is this logbook that gives the students an equation editor and algebra tool within the system. So right next to the question, they're working on it. And what you're seeing on the right here is actual data from one of Paul's courses, where a very keen student was able to set up the initial expressions and calculate, part A and part B separately to get the correct answer and full marks, not only with the input box, but if anyone checked the rough work, you can see each and every step that the student did to get to that. A lot of test questions and course leads are designing their tests with instructions. SATE does this as well. They'll say, use the logbook. I'm sure some of you guys say, submit in a Dropbox as well. But we have actual test questions coming out that will say, use the logbook for full marks. And institutions like SATE, Fanshawe, Seneca, they're making usage of this to have things right next to the actual student's work. And then there's no doubt about who's doing what, where, and when. It's also, anecdotally, I can tell you, the learning curve for students, they love this tool. When you work with engineering or calculus students, it's very quick how they pick it up and they get used to it. It's something that they incorporate not only in the tests, but also in the labs throughout the entire course. And Paul made excellent use of that as well.
Right, so the online class experience, and this is not just teaching calculus. Now, one thing that I found out that students being able to upload a PDF document or even just upload the photo of their work, it was a challenge. So now, in this era, we have to also help students. You need to do this. You need to take a photo, probably paste the photo in Word and have a Word document. So once you post the photo in Word, you can now submit it. Or there are all these apps, and I found out later that some of these apps are not actually free, but there are free ones. They used to be free, but now probably some of these are not free. So to go about how students being able to update and getting themselves orientated with the online environment, because now people are going to be having a lot of online interviews and all that. So how are they actually prepared for online evaluations or online meetings, on doing so many things online? Now, before COVID hit, I never envisaged doing or having a PDF copy of my notes or having a soft copy of my notes. I'm instructors who want to write a lot on the board to make sure that everything is manual. But now I took the time to also digitize my notes, make it available, and having to use the OER through OpenStax and Vera simplified this for me, because we have these notes available to students, and we just have to go through the resources and do as many questions that we can by explaining the concept to them as well. Now, I mentioned the challenge of having to deal with students who actually are very weak in calculus. Probably they haven't even taken it before, and you are introducing this concept to them online. The idea of having to have students work in groups, I wasn't familiar with that in the online environment, but to set up appointments would probably help them. Wasn't that much effective as well, because we want to see them working, and we tend to work 24/7, and that wasn't good for some of us, because if you leave your hours so open, everyone will want to come in. So that I would see was kind of a drawback with the online experience. Besides that, the choice of questions, the ordering of particular topics, because these are created in such a way that you actually get more than what you requested for. Say because we are now able to add some actual algebraic parts to a calculus course, and these are all free. I would say technically free, because they are just paying a fraction of what they actually need to pay. Now, in terms of homework exercises, since Vera have been using this, and we do, and the homework tool, I'm not new to that, because from BMAT and even in statistics, we're using the same concept. I give them 3 attempts. They just have to go through all these questions are randomly generated, and then they have to come up with a solution. At the end of the day, they get to see the full solution when everything is done. And one thing that I also realized that when I was making these setups, I forgot to turn on the feedback whereby students will actually see their score, the grade, and then full solution. So one student told me all they have to do is just submit the work. It shows them their solution, and then they were able to complete it. And then probably after the first assignment, I changed that, and someone came back and said, oh, something is not working on the assignment. I said, well, that was a setting that I forgot to do. So it has the future to just show the scores, shows the answers, and then after the third attempt, they get to see their full solutions. Now, what is the benefit of having to even deal with online teaching or online learning in calculus? There are some courses that we have projects, and now we are trying to also inculcate projects in calculus and our other math classes. Now, these projects are kind of data that we get from the core instructors. So for instance, instructors that are into their core programs like ELTR, electrical applications or electronics applications. So they give us this data or this information, and then we want to have it in the math way so that students are able to work sometimes in groups, or sometimes we have a good discussion online. Now, having the benefit of to work collaboratively with students from various angles, because I had a student who at the time that probably is like 8 a.m. here, or maybe we'll say maybe it's like 1 a.m. or midnight, from Thailand or from China or all over, and they were still able to. I quite remember very well, there was a group that I created even in my calculus class. And one student came to me and said, please, can you please give us students from Canada who are actually in Canada for our next project, because the time zone difference was very difficult for them to all meet together. Nonetheless, they were able to coordinate and work to the success of the projects that we had. Now, we're also working hand in hand with especially in ENT, this is the Information Communications and Technology. So not just able to do the electronics aspect, but being able to communicate the technical part to the layman or to the other parts on the project team. And that is something that we've also been doing. And this, I believe, will help students in the long run. Then these are the final part will be like with the transferable skills. So what do they actually take out from us to the real world? Now, in a calculus class, you might think, oh, we just doing math to kind of make us day-to-day being smart with whatever we do. But calculus is very technical. And in electronics and electrical engineering, the calculus that we teach is just tailored in such a way that they are very useful in their core courses. So after college, how are they going to be using these? We've now introduced not just in Excel, but we're also using Maple. We introduce a bit of Maple in it to help them do a bit of small Maple programming. But then later, probably we're also going to see how we are going to link those two with whatever is done in Intromat. Intromat is just for the assessments and then for the resources, but we also show them some other transferable stuff from our class. And then the technology literacy is being even to be able to upload a single document onto an assessment platform is a plus. Because when we started in 2019, that was January 2020, it was very hard, even for some instructors to deal with all these online challenges. But now I think we've worked in such a way that everyone is doing well in terms of taking something from our class to the real world. Any questions? All right, so these are some of the resources that I use. I mean, mainly with OpenStars and then the online assessment tool from Vera. Now, one thing that we also planning for this particular semester, and I believe one of my academic chairs had a meeting with James already, we are trying to do this for other courses. So this is a project that we are going to be taking it on. The associate dean promised or told me that he want to set up a team with me, around me, so that we try and move in the same direction for some other math courses in our department. I want to thank you all for coming, and then if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Paul, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I so much appreciate your time. James, thank you as well. What I will ask is, how about we stop sharing? And what we can do is start to let our folks ask some questions. We'll check the chat. So do the stop share, and that way,
Oh, okay.
yeah, that way they can actually see us a little bit more.
Okay.
Julian, I know you threw a question in there, but are you okay to ask it? Like maybe you can have a discussion, or do you want me to read it for you? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, if you've used other publishers' resources, they can have similar capability. And other than cost, if you have, other than cost, have you seen advantages of OpenStack/Vera over those?
Oh, so, well, thank you very much. I actually didn't want to talk about that, but since you've asked me, I'm going to mention that part of the frustrations that drove me to embark on this study is we had Washington at that time through Pearson, and they were really very hard to reach at that time. So it was very difficult. So they have to even change their account managers and all that. And my academic chair at that time was quite furious. And so we came up with a plan. Why don't we do our own thing so that we don't have to depend on others? And at the time, Vera, we were using it already with BMAT. So when I put this thing together out of nowhere and I did a presentation to the team, they were really shocked. They asked me, what time did I get to put all this stuff together? Sometimes I work late in the night to make sure that at least I'm just want to put something out there. And I didn't actually want to talk about it, but since you asked me, so that was part of the reasons. If students are paying this much of money and we don't get that service for them, there was a time that the textbook order that we had, everything delayed. There was not a single textbook at the bookstore, and so we're like, what is going on? So we decided to do this, and now there is a huge backing for this. So not that we're not using other resources, we are still using other resources, but we are trying to find alternative means to provide the same quality level that we've been using.
Thank you for your question, Julian. Thank you, Paul. Norm, do you want me to read it for you, or did you want to say it yourself?
Well, I was just you want me to just say it?
Yeah, why not? I like to hear everyone.
I find, Paul, what I've had most issues with, the students who engage with the course do really well, but I've had a lot of problems with engagement. Like some students don't even log in. They just don't show, and they won't let me. We can't have our grade, can't have attendance be part of the grade. So it's based on projects and assignments and tests, but they just don't show up and don't do the work. So have you had that issue, and how are you handling it?
Yes, definitely. I've had that. I've had similar issues. So to address this, I remember one time James came around and showed me an excellent feature. So what Vera has is that for you to be able to complete an assignment, you have to complete something before that. So even students that tend to not be engaged, they still have to read a particular resource for them to be able to access the assignment. And so they will come to me, I missed the assignment. Can you extend the due date for me? No, I don't. There is going to be like 25% a day penalty. That's what I usually said. So if you miss it from yesterday and you want to complete it today, it's going to be over 75%. So yes, there are some disengaged students, but then having that tool forces them to do the work. And then they will realize, now they have to be present. And I'm not sure if this is also available from other resources. James, do you want to chip in?
Sure. Yeah. So what Paul's referring to is our conditional locking feature. I think there are a few competing resources that do have that as well, but it's slightly different in application. So we recognize that it's not always available to assign marks to, let's say, reading a chapter from a book or watching a video or a lesson. But what Intromath can do is make the access of that or completion of that activity required to move on to the next one. And you can set up certain proficiency or level of completion in one of our lessons or within the entire set, an average completion level before they get to that lab assignment that where the marks are. So this is something that not only Paul, but a lot of other Intromath users do find quite useful in hybrid flipped or digital, 100% digital courses, where you set up the condition that to get to, unit test A, B, C, and D, you have to complete, readings from this page, your online videos and lessons for that subsection, and then it opens up. So it's not just your open and close date. And actually, this is something some of our folks who teach asynchronously in AU or CE have also used for their deployments. Instead of open dates and close dates, you set up conditions that the student has to do A, B, and C before they can open up E.
Do you have the penalty? I do it in Moodle, but does Vera also allow us to add penalties for late submissions?
Yep.
Oh yes, I do that. That's what I do.
Cool. Yeah, I know you just mentioned it. I'm going to start doing that. I think. I hate the stick approach, but it looks like I'm going to have to. Thank you.
No problem. And that information is available on my course schedule from the first day of class. You missed the assignment, please. There is 25. Now I've been a bit lenient. I brought it to 20%. So 25% to 20% now. So if you miss it, please do not email me. You can still complete the assignment. But instead of being graded over 100%, it's going to be over 80%. Yeah, so
Thank you, Norm, and thank you, Paul. So there are some comments being posted. They're not questions necessarily, but comments so Frosina, Natalia wanted to confirm that she also uses the Intromath. It's been very great for her students and very engaging. So thank you, Natalia. And Frosina is saying that's never been more important than now, that what we teach is relevant to students' other program courses, their career, their interests. She caught herself thinking of this the most when she revised the courses this summer. No, absolutely, Frosina.
Yeah. Now,
do we have any other? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No problem. I can speak a little bit to that. So here at SAIT, we usually teach into programs. So I teach into electronics program, and probably I have a kind of a strong background in physics too. So, and I'm also on the meetings with the from the core instructors. I do meet them a lot. I've been to their labs. I know how their labs works. I know a lot of things in electronics. So when I'm teaching the students, I'll tell them, when you go to the lab and on your oscilloscope, this is how that is going to work. And they are sitting down, they're like, And then they'll go and then it's true and they come back and say, wow. So next time they pay so much attention. You don't miss my math class. So it's not just calculus or math that I'm teaching you, but it's so technical that the application questions that I'm going to be giving you, if you do not come to class, you cannot do it. So, that is what we do here at SAIT. And that is also true with the business courses that I teach. I also have a background in business. So not just teaching you math, but there are some technical applications that you have to be there, or you have to see me do it and understand and ask questions. So, and I believe that is the way forward. We really have to integrate the math and make math relevant. That's my goal. And that has been my team. Make math relevant. Math should actually be very relevant in every course, not just any other course.
Thanks, Paul.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions or comments for Paul? No, I'm not seeing any. Okay. Okay, well, we're done a little bit early this afternoon. I think everyone appreciates that, Paul. They can get on with their afternoon going into our evening, and you can continue with your day.
Yeah, it's almost 2 p.m.
So
here.
yes, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just a reminder to everyone, tomorrow morning we start again at 9:30. Tomorrow's a bit of a shorter day. We're only going till 3, and just a great lineup of presentations for tomorrow as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Paul, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your best practices, and wishing everyone a good afternoon.
Yeah, thank you. And I really appreciate and I enjoy you guys being together all the time. I wish we have something like that in Alberta. So it's an envious thing. You guys are really doing great coming together. And I'm
Thank you,
glad
Paul.
I'm also, sharing in the moment with you all. So bye
Well,
for now.
hopefully we'll have you with us in May when we hope to come together in person. Fingers crossed, you can come visit and
Yeah.
present to everybody in person.
Yeah. Thank you and bye, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone.